Tonight, a West Virginia community is coming together to honor two National Guard members shot in an ambush attack in Washington, D.C. You're looking live now at Webster Springs, West Virginia, where a vigil is scheduled to soon take place for 20-year-old Sarah Beckstrom and 24-year-old Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolfe. Beckstrom died from her injuries on Thursday. Wolfe remains in critical condition. In the days following that attack, family, friends, even strangers have come together to honor them, and CNN reporter Camila DeChalis has more now.
Well, Jessica, we're learning more details about the two National Guard service members who were recently shot in Washington, D.C. this past week. Now, unfortunately, one of them, Sarah Beckstrom, she recently just passed away from her injuries. Meanwhile, Andrew Wolfe, he was 24 and he now still remains in critical condition. Now, Republican lawmaker Riley Moore has been in contact with his family and recently gave us an update on his condition. Take a listen.
Andy is hanging on, and he's a fighter, and his family has told me that time and time again. He is a fighter. But above all, what they want here is for everybody to continue to pray.
Now, we know Andrew Wolfe was from West Virginia and has been with the West Virginia National Guard since 2019. As for Sarah, we know that she was just 20 years old when she passed away. She's also from West Virginia and joined the military back in 2023. Now, recently, we had a chance to speak to her ex-boyfriend, who shared what she was feeling before she was deployed to D.C. and told us that even though she wasn't exactly thrilled to be in D.C. at first, things started to change once she arrived.
Hated it. Absolutely hated it. She was crying before she left. She dreaded it. She did not want to go. I didn't figure it would ever go this way, of course, and I kind of encouraged her. I was like, it could be a great opportunity. There's nothing around here. She didn't want to be there. Not a doubt in her mind. She didn't want to be there. And then once she was there, she kind of realized it wasn't too bad, and she was having fun.
Now, as for the shooter, we learned that he used to work with the CIA in Afghanistan before coming to the U.S. in 2021 under the Biden-era program. He was also recently granted asylum just this past year, back in April, under the Trump administration, and sources told CNN that he was thoroughly vetted by U.S. intelligence agencies before arriving here. Now, the U.S. Attorney General says that the suspect is now facing murder charges related to the shooting, and prosecutors are even considering seeking the death penalty.
All right, Camila, thank you. We're joined now by CNN's senior national security analyst, Juliette Kayyem. She also served in the Department of Homeland Security in the Obama administration and is currently a professor at the Harvard Kennedy School. Juliette, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
This is such a tragedy and so sad. We have 3 days now since this all happened. What questions do you still have about this attack?
So many questions, and it is such a tragedy for what happened, and for all the National Guard members that are still deployed to D.C. and elsewhere. Here's the question right now, which is, did the vetting process that we know, there are a variety of places where the United States is essentially vetting him, did it miss something, or was there a radicalization process in the last couple months that family and friends may have ignored or known was happening? Look, you and I have been doing this, unfortunately, long enough. These things never come out of the blue, right? A family member, a community member, maybe he was having contacts abroad of which he is talking about these plans. So I think that we're going to learn more about sort of what got him from Washington State to Washington, D.C., and what was the mind frame and the trigger and the sort of like what caused this to happen on Thanksgiving when he decided to finally do it.
We know that the suspect went through multiple rounds of vetting to first work with the CIA and then be granted asylum here in the United States. Can you walk us through what that process looks like? When they're vetting somebody, what are they doing?
Okay, so I think I can, at least from our public reporting, there's at least 5 what you would call touch points with the United States government. There are going to be different levels of vetting. Okay, so the first is the CIA. The CIA in Afghanistan is trying to get Afghans to support the war effort, the counterterrorism effort. It's a nasty, honestly, very dark world that this is happening in. We don't know the nature of the suspects' involvement. At some stage, we learned that the National Counterterrorism Task Force, the NCTC, the National Counterterrorism Center, has done some review of him. So where that's happening, we don't know. Then Kabul falls. He then is allowed onto a plane to come to the United States under Operation Allies Welcome. That is not an extensive vetting, but what the Biden administration did is it made sure everyone who was allowed here under this sort of temporary operations, Allies Welcome standard, was not a danger right then. Then there's another vetting process for the special immigration visa. That's a visa that's administered through the Department of Defense or by DHS, but it's a Defense Department visa to give to people who have helped us in war. And then, of course, as we now know, under the Trump administration, the final and last vetting, which is when he seeks and is granted asylum status. So that's a lot of, honestly, that's just a lot of moments that he's having encounters with the United States. So the big question is, politics aside, I know everyone's trying to blame everyone else, is what was missed or what has happened since the Trump administration granted him that asylum status? That's the question everyone should want to answer.
Right. And I would assume, and this seems obvious, but just confirming with you, that now they then go back and talk to his family members, to people who knew him. Like, they're going to do a thorough investigation of all of that to try to get to the answer you're talking about.
That's exactly right. Look, the Trump administration has reacted with a sort of sweeping, let's just say, stopping all Afghans from being able to process or become legalized in this nation. They're just taking a sweeping approach that everyone's guilty because of the one suspect. What needs to be done is to determine, what was going on in terms of his radicalization, because clearly he was, and when did it begin, and were there signs of it that were missed either by the United States government, refugee programs, and others that might have been supporting him, and of course his family and community. We need to answer those questions rather than just assume everyone in that pool, Afghans, are inherently suspect, and that's been the approach of the White House at least since this weekend.
And the president is now deploying more troops to the D.C. area. Is there additional risk in your assessment and in your kind of professional assessment to these troops following this shooting? I know we talk about copycats and that sort of thing, but are they more at risk now than they were before?
Well, I wrote about this for The Atlantic, and look, there is evidence and that commanders of the National Guard were saying to their leadership, look, this is a vulnerability that the National Guard is standing out there. Part of it is because the mission was so loose. It started off as anti-crime. It then became sort of a beautification campaign. It then became just sort of a visibility. And all of us who have been to D.C., they're sort of just walking the streets. None of those are really focused on force protection. And that's, I think, clearly what has happened here. So you add more people, there's more vulnerabilities. Of course, the more there are, maybe it's less likely that someone will go after them. But none of these numbers answer the fundamental question, which is, of course, what is the mission? How do you measure it, right? What are the rules of engagement? How come the original, why are they doing beautification when we're talking about anti-crime? So I think part of this is just answering a question that the commanders of the National Guard have been asking, that members of the National Guard we know have been asking and criticizing, is what particular specialty do we have that brings us here? Sure, it's nice to have more National Guard on the street, or it's nice to have your streets clean. But why the National Guard doesn't have a particular expertise in this? In fact, they haven't been trained. I will say, since my piece came out just 2 days ago, which many people were critical of, and I understand that, I've gotten a couple dozen letters from National Guard members saying, thank you for saying what we can't say, which is the mission ambiguity, and now the mission creep with more National Guard members has been known and talked about in the Pentagon since the deployment. So the lawyers can fight it out in court, but if we care about the National Guard and protecting them, we need to be more rigorous about what is the mission, and then we get into force protection.
All right, Juliette Kayyem, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.